Where did we get to in here? Where did we leave off?
What price should be sold?
What price? Okay. Thank you. Alright, also just to know, I haven't done it yet, but just to kind of let you guys know, I'll have homework now too, which is probably, well it is, it's a real homework, a couple pages. It'll be on production possibilities, frontiers, and it'll be available probably today. It just depends, it won't be due for probably a week or two, but well, call it 10 days just as a number, but that'll be out there today on the website, and then I'll go through the process of showing you. Well, you guys know where it is, right? Everybody okay with that? It'll be here, there. It'll be homework 1. All you'll see is homework 1, and I'll tell you when it's out there. I'll maybe even send an email to everybody if you want, and then all you'll see is out. It'll be due at 9/1. Okay, so we got through. Let me just go through these real quick and talk about where we were. Kind of refresh my memory. All right, so we're talking about the 10 principles of economics, and the guy who came up with this is a guy named Mankey. You have to know that guy named Mankey. He kind of, more or less, the economics world has adopted this as being a truth in economics. And so our book alludes to a little bit. Nolan does kind of his own take. He wants his own 10 principles, you know what I mean? And they're really kind of the same thing, but just so you know, they're probably labeled a little bit differently, but it really is the identical stuff. There's 10, let's mention, we've gone through the first 4, and let me talk just real quick about this, kind of where we left off. So who does the work is the people who can. You want skilled people doing work, like brain surgery or rocket science or, what biochemical engineering or whatever. You want skilled people doing that because, of course, there's a lot more at stake, and then their pay is consummate with their ability, right? Because their marginal contribution of labor is much higher. You're getting a lot more product out of a brain surgeon than you are, maybe no disrespect at all, but a coffee barista, right? Because you or I could probably train to be a barista. I don't know, I guess it's like 3 months or something like that, but we could probably, most of us, handle that. Let me even take it back a notch and even say, well, baristas, like I could never make the little smiley face in the foam on the cappuccino, and I know it. I'm too shaky. I'm kind of a shaky guy. And I would be like, what? It wouldn't work for me. But how about babysitting? How much do you get paid to babysit? How much?
It's like what, like 8%?
It's all negotiable. I like
Depends
that
on how
answer.
old you are. The younger kids get paid less. If you're paying a 13-year-old, they're going to take $5 an hour.
Okay, so you're paying a 13-year-old, say, $5 an hour. So why can you get away with that besides child labor laws? Why can you get away with that? Because
they want the money.
Well, yeah, because a 13-year-old will do anything for $5. But more importantly is that, and no disrespect, but there's not really a whole hell of a lot of skill involved. Watch the kid. Don't freaking lose the kid. That's all you got to do. I don't change poopy diapers or anything. I just watch the kid. I'll tell you. Okay, anecdote. Here you go. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but just okay. When I was probably college age. I can't quite remember now. I remember the girl, but I don't remember the age. And she had a little kid that was probably. I don't have any kids, so I don't know. He was about this big, so he's like 12. And she had a Jeep. And of course, back in the day, the seatbelt laws were very different. And so we were going to McDonald's, and this kid was sitting in the front seat with his seatbelt on, his head not showing over the edge. But in a Jeep, I don't know if you can reach up under the front seat, and there's a lot of room there. And I could see his little tennis shoes bobbing there. I was in the back seat. So I reached under and I tied his little shoelaces together. And when we get to McDonald's, and I kind of forgot about it. I wasn't thinking at all. And I get out of the Jeep, and it's like, hey, little man, McDonald's, and I'm carrying him, flipping him around like a little toy or something. And then we get into McDonald's, and it's like, oh, it's your lucky day. Run, be free, little man. I set him on the ground and pushed him. And I was laughing so hard. And the kid wasn't sure to cry or laugh. I mean, he was hurt, but it was like, why is he laughing so hard? And I decided maybe kids weren't for me at that point. Maybe I should adopt, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how I got off of that. Yeah, babysitting. Yeah, never babysitting, ever. Okay, what should we produce in this country is what we're good at. We shouldn't make coconuts because the Peruvians are better at that than us. They have more of the right climate, the right, landscape, whatever. And we're good at doing corn and cotton and citrus and whatever we're good at doing, high tech, blah, blah, blah. And, a country like Haiti, maybe not high tech because they don't have the infrastructure, So we should do what we're good at. We should use the resources, land, labor, capital. We should use what we have an abundance of. The United States, we're lucky here because we have a good, obviously a huge country with a lot of good land. We have good labor force in terms of education and, infrastructure and capital equipment and, people come to us when they need things built. I mean, that's a fact, right? So we've got a lot of things going. Whereas, and again, those poor folks in Haiti, I think there's another hurricane heading right towards them. They can't, every time they get out of one, there's another one, those poor people. And they don't have that infrastructure, and they try to build a little bit and it gets knocked down again. And so Haiti's not a very productive country because they just don't have the resources. And if they could dodge a hurricane for a few years, they would probably be good at growing what they're good at, whatever that is, in Haiti, you know what I'm saying? All right, and then the price that we should charge is what we can get. And that's all about demand, and we talked about the pencil, Today, maybe I could get 5 cents for a pencil, but on quiz day or exam day, I could probably get 25 cents, okay? So is everybody okay with that? All right, so now we're into the, whoops, that bounced, hold on, that went around a little bit. Where are we at? So that's where we left off? Is that right?
Yeah, well, we went to goal in life is to be
We went to this one?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys, I screwed up. Okay, so now you get to hear all this again. All right, so people face trade-offs. Why are you here? We're here because it was better than your second best choice, right? And you made a decision at 8:30 or whatever time you got out of bed or whatever to come to this class because the payoff coming here is greater than the payoff you would have gotten doing an alternate plan or plan B. Right? And for everybody it's different. And there's an important note here is that for me, like playing video games, I don't really care. And so even though technically I could be playing them, I wouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? If I wasn't here, I would be, sleeping or whatever, okay? And so for me, my second best choice is sleep. For you, your second best choice is having coffee with your friends or something else, you see what I'm saying? So the opportunity cost is what you give up, not what you could give up, but what you actually do. Does that make sense? It's the second best choice. That's an important note. The margin, the oranges, everybody okay with that? We don't think in increments. We get to the end. Did we cover that? We didn't? Okay. So that's about where we left off. Okay. So is everybody, let me go back. Did we do the what you give up to get? I'm feeling a little lost. Okay. All right, so now we're doing the margin. Okay. Sorry about, I was off a little bit there. I apologize. I should have watched the video. Now I'm boring. Okay. Rational people think at the margin. This is pretty easy. Is that when we get up out of bed or do whatever we're going to do today, we don't think in terms of increments of satisfaction based on the cost. And so let me give you an example. Is that, like when you got out of bed this morning, okay, I got to go to economics class at 9 o'clock. So, or 9:30. So I get out of bed and I put a foot on the floor and I see how I feel. And it's like, well, that's okay. I feel all right. Well, so I put the second foot on the floor. How do I feel? Okay. And I put it, and I start walking towards the restroom and, how do I feel as I take these steps, We don't do that because to do that wouldn't be practical for us. We don't have the time or the resources or anything to measure the cost benefit of everything we do. And so what we do is we make the assumption that we're going to go to class. And the cost that goes into getting here is just enough to get you here. And I'll give you another example. I'll explain that. So here's a better scenario, and this will make more sense. You guys know about Winco, right? We talked about Winco yet? Okay, we're going into Winco. You guys know what Winco is mostly? Everybody? I don't want to leave anybody like, what? I've never heard of it. Okay, do you know what Winco stands for?
Washington, Idaho,
I didn't.
Nevada, California, Oregon.
I didn't know that until like yesterday. I had no clue. What it stands for: Washington, Idaho,
Nevada, California, Oregon. But they have them in Utah now, so I think they're going to
Winco.
French.
Winco. I did not know that until yesterday. Okay, so Winco. Let's go through this scenario. Winco is a fun place. Let's talk about this. Does anybody here work at Winco? Before I stick my mouth in my mouth. No, I've got nothing bad to say. It's just an interesting experience. Okay, so you get, let's say it's kind of the beginning of the month. It's a busy time. You know, people have their paychecks, and you know everybody's going shopping or holiday, 4th of July, whatever. So you go into Winco, and then here's how it goes. You step in through the door, and there's those yellow things on the ground that I can't quite figure out that'll stop a tank, and you can't get your cart like that. So you go in and you look to the left and there's your cart. And if you've ever noticed, this has nothing to do with the class, but just an observation. The cart with the plastic bag in it is always the one that's closest to you. And if you don't want a plastic bag in your cart, you have to go down the aisle to get a cart that's empty. For some odd reason, people like plastic bag. I can't use that cart. There's a bag in it. Trust me. Just trust me. Go in and look, and they'll be, they'll all be the close ones, plastic bag, plastic bag. One way down there empty. Ha, I'm going to get an empty one. So I grab the empty one, and then the wheels all walk. It's like a loser. Okay, so I get my cart, walk, and I go into the store. And as, I don't know, there's some grocery store etiquette in Winco that sometimes gets missed. And there'll be somebody standing there thinking about spaghetti sauce, and their cart will be on the other side of where they're standing. And they're standing here looking at the spaghetti sauce, and it's like you're taking up the entire, 20 feet in this aisle. And they have no clue. I mean, they're just standing there like you're in their way somehow, and it's like, just keep it together. All right, so finally they move, and you get your cart. You come around now to the oranges, or to the vegetables. The oranges there. I like oranges. It's what I like. Okay, so when I get my oranges, what I do is I take the plastic bag and I open the bag. I open the bag. You know what I'm talking about. I saw the grossest thing ever. I saw this guy one time. He had his bag and went, and then he picked up the fruit, and it was like, ugh. Wash your fruits and vegetables. Anyway, you get your bag open. All right. Now we don't think in terms of, I get 4 oranges. No reason, that's just what I can eat in a week. That's just what I get. And an orange costs, I don't know, say $1 to make it easy. I don't put an orange in the bag and say, now, is the benefit I get from that orange worth the $1 I'm spending on it? How do I feel about that? Is that a good trade-off? Is the opportunity cost there for me? Would I rather have the orange than the $1? Does that make sense? So I put another orange in. Hello? Is the opportunity cost of giving up that $1 worth the orange I get? I'm making another analysis of the increment of my satisfaction. We don't do that. What we do is we just go right up to the cusp of where we're going to be happy. 4 oranges is my number. If I bought 1 more orange, I might say, well, 5 oranges is a bit much for me, and that extra $1 isn't worth that 5th orange because I might not eat it. Do you see what I'm saying? Won't get to it. So I don't think in terms of each orange, but I think in terms of getting right to the cusp of my happiness in relation to the cost. Make sense? All right, people respond to incentives. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, the incentive one is pretty easy. I'll give you a really good, easy example, and this is true. In the fall, what's going to happen is I have 5 acres in Palo Cedro, little teacher acres. They're not fancy or anything, and what happens is they get growth every in the spring and in the fall. What I'll tend to do is I'll hire students from this class or a class to come help me mow. I have all the equipment. I just need help, physical help, because it's just too much. Now, that being said, how many of you guys, and people I should say, anybody, how many folks in here would be willing to come to my house to work for 6 hours for fun. It's a good time. I have a very friendly dog. The weather's usually nice. It's like, no takers. Well, one taker, but then she put her head down. Like, no. All right, how about this? How about I buy, whoever decides to show up, two of you, I'll buy you lunch.
Where's lunch at?
It's the starving college student syndrome. Take advantage. It's like child labor laws or something. Should apply out. How about this? So I got 4 takers. How about if I pay, it takes 6 hours. How about if I pay $10 an hour and buy you lunch? How many people are interested now? Look around. How about $15 an hour in lunch? Look around. How about $20 an hour in lunch? Everybody, right? And the truth is, the easiest thing for me to do is just pay you $100 for $6, 6 hours worth of work, and I'll buy you lunch. And I'll hit you up sometime in November, so be ready. And everyone's like, I'll do it. So the incentive is there. Once it gets incentivized, more and more people are willing to do it. Disincentives are the exact same thing, but kind of in the opposite direction. When I was first moved to Reading, I worked, as you know, for CDF, and I had they send you home in the company cars, you know, through CAL FIRE, and I had a Crown Victoria, you know, just a regular old car, you know, it had the lights and all that stuff. And what happened was one morning I was going to work, and I pulled out. I lived off of Hartnell at the time, and I pulled out. I had a uniform on. I was in a company CAL FIRE car with the lights. I pull out onto Hartnell, and I'm sitting at the corner of Hartnell and the little off street that I was on, and I was looking, and probably as far as you guys in the back row or away from me, there was a police officer sitting there, looking right at me. Okay, now I had gotten my stuff together, I had my coffee, my papers, and all this stuff. I'm going through my routine, and I mean, I wear my seatbelt, I don't think about it, but I just hadn't had a chance to put it on yet, which is a true story. I mean, I was just like doing this, you know, and this cop is looking right at me, and you guys have been here, you know this story. Click. It's like, he didn't see that, no. So I turn the corner, and I go about 100 yards, and he lights me up. Nice guy, professional police officer, but you know, nothing wrong, very professional, so there was nothing wrong with that. He pulls me over, and now I'm sitting there in a uniform with the Crown Vic, same exact car as this guy's got, funded from the state. This guy comes up, he says, yeah, I saw you didn't have your seatbelt on. I got a badge on. Dude, we're on the same side of the fence here. Got a ticket anyway. And I'm like, heartless, man. I mean, he was professional. He wasn't anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. But I was like, you know, that was uncool. Really uncool. Cost me $70 at the time, and to this day, the first thing I do is put my seatbelt on before I get my, you know. So I respond to that incentive as well. So there's a positive in it. All right. So everybody cool with that? Okay, let's see here. So those are the first 4 principles of economics, man-Q stuff. Now we're on to the next 3, and these are micro issues. And there's a lot going on here, so there's a lot of understanding to be gleaned out of this. And it'll help you, getting all this stuff will help make the class easier for you. Okay, trade can make everybody better off. All right. Do we have immigration to California?
Yes.
Okay. What does that immigration consist of partly? And be respectful, but be honest. What does that immigration consist of partly?
Migrant workers.
Okay. Migrant workers that come kind of from south of the border. Not necessarily Mexico, but South Mexico and beyond. Yeah? Is that fair? Is everybody okay with that? Is that, basically a true statement? All right, so let me put some qualifiers on this just to make it easier to understand, or easier to process is a better way to say that. We agree that we have workers come to this country from Central and South America. Let's make the assumption that the workers that come to this country are documented and have their paperwork in order and blah, 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 blah. So there's not that illegal immigrant variable. because I know that's there, 12 million people have come to this country illegally, and I acknowledge that. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about people who are trying to make their lives better, okay? So they do what they need to do, they get the work visas or the whatever it is to get to come to the United States to work. All right, I'm a worker in central Mexico. And this is true, I mean, I'm not pulling these numbers out of thin air, but this is more or less true. There isn't a minimum wage in Mexico, but the minimum wage, just kind of by virtue of what it is, the equilibrium wage in Mexico for labor is about $2 an hour. That's true. Okay, so I'm a worker in Mexico who makes $2 an hour. I have a family, I have kids, yada, yada, yada. If I get my paperwork in order, and I go travel to the United States for 9 months out of the year, what can I make there? Assume everything's legal. What can I make in the United States?
4 times as much.
Yeah, I can make minimum wage, right? Which is $8 an hour. Now, $8 an hour relative to where I live is quite a bump, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so I've got everything in order. I take off. I'll be gone for 9 months. What are my opportunity costs? What am I giving up? Family, huge, right? I'm giving up, what else? Family's huge, what else?
You're not guaranteed a job.
Yeah, okay, so it's a crapshoot. You may end up coming back with nothing, sure. What else am I giving up?
Cost of relocating.
Cost of relocating. Comfort. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, comfort. My lifestyle, my heritage, my family, my culture, everything that I know, is getting left behind, and I'm going to go off into probably a relatively scary place for the folks that are coming here, right? Okay, so I come to the United States and I work. I'm giving up being with my family, but let's just make the assumption it costs $4 an hour to live here. I live humbly and communally, and to just buy gas to get to work and food and all that stuff costs me $4 an hour. So then what do?
Send the rest home.
Right, I send the other 4 back to my family in central Mexico. Now, am I benefiting from this, or is my family benefiting?
Yeah.
Of course, right? I've effectively doubled my take-home pay, right? By doing this process, all right? So that's a win, economically. What about the people in the United States? Are we benefiting by having the people come to this country who are willing to do that kind of work and can document a benefit by doing it? Are we okay with that here?
Yes, it is.
Okay, remember, be PC, really important, but I heard a yes and no. Let's start with the no. Just curious. So go ahead.
It removes those jobs from people who are here.
Okay, so the jobs are now that would be here for the indigenous people are being absorbed by people who are coming in. Okay, good point.
The counter of that, though, is that they're more willing to work for those low wages than a lot of people here are.
And why is that? Just to be honest about it, because
Because Americans are lazy.
it's a quadrupling of their pay.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Half of their money, if they're staying here and they send back to their family, that half doesn't get staying here for our economy.
Okay, so there's an exporting of dollars, yeah? Okay, that's important. We'll talk a little bit about that. So there's dollars going
But if
away.
there wasn't someone else to do that work that would do it for cheap, would more people be willing to do it?
We're going to talk about that. That's a great question. Let me, any other reasons why the folks who are willing to come to this country is a no? Just to, go ahead. Oh, okay, yeah, it strains the system, yeah? I mean, there's Social Security and school and yada, yada.
We have a lot of people here already.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people here already. That's a good point. Any other thoughts about that? Well, okay, first, this isn't really where I'm going with this, but I want to address what you said, okay, is that the dollars are being exported, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. It's more of a macro issue, but just so you kind of let you know I addressed it, is that a dollar, and again, this isn't for notes or anything, just to talk about it. A dollar, if it goes to Mexico, does it become something different?
More pesos.
Does it? I don't know. If I took $1 and I walked into Mexico and I bought a Corona with it, does it turn into a peso?
No.
Still $1. And where does that dollar eventually have to come back to? It has to. Because this is the central bank for that form of currency. And what does that dollar do is it stimulates the Mexican economy as it works its way back here. It has to come back. Or it could even be traded in Mexico, in some touristy town, sure. It could be the currency of exchange, but a dollar doesn't magically turn into a peso. A dollar gets exchanged for pesos and we get the dollar back, right? So just something to think about. We'll talk more about that, but just something to think about. Okay, so I heard some no's, but now let's talk about why that benefits us. There's a person here who's, let's just say strawberries, just because that's what we have right over across the way. We have a person in this country who's quadrupled their pay, who's very willing to work for $8 an hour because, relatively speaking, that's a huge. I mean, if I made 4 times what I made, I'd do this all day if I made 4 times what I made. Okay, so they're willing to do the work, and great. Does that take jobs away from us? Go ahead, Rick.
I don't believe it does.
Unemployment line wouldn't be any shorter because you're giving $8 an hour to pick strawberries. Also, it keeps us, our comparative advantage, competitive
Okay, yep.
by getting those strawberries at a lower cost.
Okay, good. If we paid American workers to pick strawberries, unionized American workers, what would the wage be?
16 an hour.
16, would they need health insurance,
I would
company
say-
car, management positions? I always think of Cousin Eddie in Vacation when I say that. Management positions. All right, so what's a thing of strawberries cost? One of those little green things. What's that cost?
$4.
$4. If we had American workers making 16 bucks an hour with all the benefits, what would it cost?
25.
15 bucks, right? Okay, so there's an advantage to us, yeah? I mean, there's something that's good. I guess I didn't answer the question. But now, so that's an advantage, but does it take jobs away? Well, yes and no, because I know most of us are farmers probably, but yeah, go ahead.
I think at this point in our society, Americans have gotten so used to expecting more, I guess, and so we don't, sometimes, this may not be like accurate wholeheartedly, but we put ourselves kind of above that type of work. Like that's for those type of people that want to do that kind of thing. So I think if that type of labor wasn't available to us, then it might be a different story, but at this point in time, it's everywhere. It's
Okay.
readily available, so no, we're going, no, I'm not gonna do it because that guy's able to do it, so I'm
Okay.
gonna go work somewhere else.
And so I'm not going to do it because there's somebody else willing to do it, and that somebody else is willing to do it because they're making quadruple their salary in their home country. Well, strawberries, I'll just use that as an example because that's, there's a patch right out there, and I know it's all everything, but strawberries don't wait for you to get out of class. When they're ripe, they're ripe. And we need a comparative advantage labor force in this country to be able to do that. Now, what did you guys do? 100% of you are sitting here, trying to pay attention, trying not to fall. Why are you here? Going all the way back. Why are you here? To be happy, right? Now, how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to get your degree, and you're going to get a job that pays 80 grand a year in your, whatever your chosen profession is. So, in a weird way, the person who's able to comparatively advantage pick strawberries in our country allows you to be able to go to university to get a degree, to get a job that makes $80 or $90 or $100,000 a year. True? Because the strawberries aren't going to wait for you. They need to be picked. Is that not true? So you guys we are all getting or benefiting by the fact that there's a labor force able and willing to have the comparative advantage to come to this country to do that. And I know there's an illegal issue. I'm not trying to fix that problem. I'm not. But what I'm saying is look at it for what it is and think about where you are in relation to the folks that are out there right now working in the field. You follow? So we're all winning. They're winning by doubling or quadrupling their income. You guys, we are winning by having this class so you can get a degree so you can make 150 grand a year. You follow? So they're trading this labor and so everybody's winning. All right, we're going to talk a lot more about that. That's just kind of a precursory to it. All right, number 5. All right, markets are a good way to organize economic activity. Back to WinCo. Washington, Iowa.
Iowa, Nevada,
Iowa? No,
Idaho.
Idaho. Washington, Idaho.
Nevada, California, Oregon.
Nevada. Washington.
The West Coast.
West Coast, okay.
West Coast.
I can see myself. West Virginia, Iowa, Colorado.
Nebraska. Oklahoma.
Ole Miss. All right, back to Winco. All right, so we go in, we know we get the cart in the back that's got no plastic bag, just some weird psychological block we all have. So we get that, we get our carts, we pull them out, we always get the wobbly one, that's just the way it goes. We wait for the lady, you can't decide between, mushroom or veggie tomato sauce, So we go get our veggies and we get our bags of stuff and we get our bulk food and our, meat, listen, you're trying to walk you through Winco here. We come around the corner, there's frozen foods, go into the dry foods and you get your mac and cheese and your spaghetti sauce and you gotta get the cookie, get the cookies. You get your soda pop, your bread, and now remember, it's kind of the beginning of the month. It's a busy, let's say it's right before July 4th, so they're busy. You come around the corner, and it's, let's say all the lanes are open, okay, very busy time. Which lane do you pick?
The shortest.
The shortest. Does everybody agree with that? The shortest line.
No.
Depends on how much stuff's in the
Depends on how much
carts.
stuff they have.
Okay, so we could have a long line with guys just buying 6 packs of beer, and a short line with one, elderly person going 1 American dollar, 2 American dollar. You know what I mean? We can have. So which of the two are we probably going to pick?
Six packs of beer.
Yeah. Which line are we looking for really? Yeah, the one that's going to get us out of the store the fastest. Does everybody agree with that? All right. So everybody. Well, let me back up. Is there anybody in here that's looking for a line with anything else going on? Really? Okay, so we're all trying to do the same thing. I would make a note of this. Is that Adam Smith, the OG of economics, said that everybody working to benefit themselves creates a market that's mostly efficient. Right? And so you and I are all trying to accomplish the same thing. We're all trying to get out of the store in as efficient manner as we can. I don't care what you're trying to do. You don't care what I'm trying to do. But if we added it all together, you'd have a market that's pretty efficient because we're all trying to accomplish the same thing. Does that make sense? All right, so now that being said, so we're looking for the most efficient line. But so are you, and so are you, and so are the rest of us. Here's a great experiment. Try it. Is that next time you're in Winco, when it's busy, just go down the aisle, and instead of trying to find the most efficient line, find a line, provided your wife won't kill you or something, but find a line with the good-looking lady or the handsome man, whatever your preference is. Pull in behind them and say, "How you doing?" Say, "You got eggs? I like eggs. What's your
Has that ever worked for you?
I like OJ. I know I don't have any, but you do.
Maybe we can share.
Creepy. I got the vodka.
Trade your favor.
That gets worse every time. It goes worse and worse.
Trade and make everyone better off.
There you go. There you go.
I got the vodka. And maybe like, "Help me. Somebody help me." All right, so try it sometime. Is that, just find an aisle and don't creep anybody out. And look kind of on both sides of you and see who's there. And then just kind of keep track of, as you get out, how much you get out before or after the people that you're in line with in a horizontal manner. It evens out. And the reason why is that the market takes care of itself. And let me explain how this works. Is that if you get into a line, looks efficient, looks like it's going to go quick. I'm standing in line, and then, sure as anything, price check in aisle 3, you know what I mean? Sure as anything. And what happens is that people then start to adjust, and they go away, because now we're waiting, everybody's just standing there. So I notice a line over here, and I'll just migrate away from the line that's stopped. And I'll get back into the line that's moving. You see what I'm saying? And then once this price check's taken care of, then it starts to speed up, and people migrate back into this line. Does that make sense? So the market actually takes care of itself. And in a weird way, the checkers, and this is kind of the next thing, the checkers are kind of acting like the government. I mean, not like, tax you, but what they're doing is they're mitigating the ebb and the flow, and they're saying if there's a hang up, I'll lean over to the next aisle and I'll say, would you like to come over here? And I'll try to create an efficiency for you. Make sense? All right, so is everybody clear on that? And try it. I mean, just in a busy time, just pick a line, stand there, look around you, and see if you get out about the same as everybody else. And then, sure enough, if your line starts to move faster, people will get in your line. If your line starts to move slower, people will migrate away from your line, in which case you can move up. Try it. Okay, governments can improve economic outcomes. This is probably, it's not a great example, but it's the best one I had. It makes a lot of sense. So, let me see here. She woke up. I got in trouble one time with a sleeper in my class because it was right near the end of the class. And she's like, are you talking about me? And she hasn't quite woken up yet. What we did is we all stood up, and it was like, and this was a serial sleeper. Every time she'd come into class, I mean, no kidding, she'd come in, she'd sit down, she'd put her bags down, and she'd go. And it was like, where were you? She wouldn't even try to stay awake. She was just out every single time. And so what we did is we kind of got it all together, and we sort of all filed out of class and just left her there sleeping. And I got Dutch for that one because the argument was that I left her in a compromised situation. I didn't, that she was in there by herself and had, no oversight. Like, she was sleeping, dude. I heard about it. I kind of forgot what I was talking about. Okay, so when I first moved here, I used to kayak a lot. I hurt my back, so I don't do it so much anymore. But one of the places we used to go is up in Keswick, and I don't care. I'm not bashing anybody, and whatever. I don't care about the company, so don't think I'm saying anything about it. There's company ABC Lumber up there, right in Keswick. I mean, if you go down in there, there's a big lumber mill in Keswick. And what they started doing was they were called to the table anyway about what they were doing is they were making plywood, particle board, and they were dumping the waste, which is actually pretty toxic, into the Keswick Dam Reservoir. And when you go kayaking up there, I think to this day, you can go out there and it's nasty. It's like, down underneath, where Lake Redding is beautiful water, and, the salmon are hopping and jumping into your net, and everybody's always happy, Up there, it's nasty. It's bad. And what happens is all that shit floats down, and, there's the breakers that keep you from getting too close to the dam, so you don't become part of the hydroelectric system. You don't commit to that. But you get out there and the wood it's gross stuff. It's not just wood. It's just like, it's hard to explain. It's wood based, but it's really nasty. And it's, I don't know. So anyway, there it was. And what happened was the government, Shasta County, said, ABC Lumber, you have to start cleaning up your own waste. Because if they don't clean up their waste, eventually who's going to pay for it? Taxpayers, right? And you and I will. And how are we going to pay for it? And we can bring it on home, right to us, is that if it screws up the ecosystem up there, up in Keswick, which comes down into Lake Redding, and you work at a restaurant in Redding, and visitors are coming through Redding saying, yeah, it's okay, but man, it's a stinky little dirty place and I'm never going to stop there again, then you, as an employee in a restaurant, are impacted by that. Now, who pays for it? Well, now I make less money because of the Keswick pollution, and on top of that, now I'm getting taxed because we've got to fix it because the salmon are dying, and because it's gross, and because it's, screwing up the ecosystem, and it's hurting tourism and all this other stuff, right? So now I become culpable for their waste. So Shasta County says, okay, you guys clean up your own waste. So that moves the cost onto them. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Is it? where do they pass the cost on to?
Consumers, but only if you buy particle board.
Good. So does it make sense that the people who buy particle board should pay for the cleanup?
Yes.
I think so. That makes sense to me. Now, so the government steps in and says, look, you guys, I understand it's the least expensive thing to do is throw your shit into the Keswick Dam. I get that. But the fact is the cost doesn't go away just because you're not paying it. It just gets passed down the river. And so we need to have you pay for your own cost and then pass that cost on to your customers. And then that way the cost is internalized where it should be. So the government steps in and makes it right. Does that make sense? They can screw it up just as bad too, don't get me wrong, but that's kind of the idea. Okay, the last three. This is microplastics. I'm not going to go into this too much. I'll just kind of cover it real quick. Just to round it out. What time is it anyway? I can't see that clock.
It's actually 7.
Good, we'll be just right on schedule. Okay, so a country's standard of living depends on your ability to produce goods and services. Is the United States productive, generally? We're one of the most, if not the most productive nation in the whole world. Is a country like Haiti productive? Those poor folks, I mean, they can't catch a break, right? So Haiti, every time they build a building, the hurricanes come and wipe it out. Like I said, there's another hurricane headed right for them right now. And I want to clarify something really quick. And I think people, maybe one or two students will say, I guess that made sense, but I never quite looked at it that way. I think most of you kind of understand this, but is that America is productive because we have the land labor capital here to be productive. We have a relatively educated labor force, lots of land, lots of infrastructure and capital equipment and so forth. The folks in Haiti they maybe have some labor, but they certainly don't have capital, and they don't have land. Haiti's very small, obviously, so they probably don't have tons and tons and tons of farmland like we do. It's not that the people of Haiti are unproductive. It's that the country doesn't support the land labor capital. If you took somebody from Haiti and you moved them to Reading and said, okay, come to school in Reading, get your degree from Shasta College, go on to become a business major, of course that person is going to be as successful as any other graduate from Shasta College, of course. But it's not that the United States, this is where I think a couple of students will go, is that we're not productive because we're Americans. And I think there's that kind of American pride sometimes gets in the way of the reality. And I'm not dissing America, I'm proud to be, but the fact is we're not productive because we're Americans. We're productive because we have a country here that can support us. Okay, just a note. Prices rise when the government prints too much money. What's that called? Inflation. Interesting time right now. President Obama had an interesting run. I'm not going to go into it too much, but as you know, 4 years ago, President Obama's administration bailed out our ailing economy. He bailed out GM, he bailed out AIG, Lehman Brothers, Fannie, Freddie, the list goes on and on. Bailed out all these companies, and the problem, or the issue here, is that he put, not quite, but $1 trillion into the economy to bail out all these comical companies. Where's the money? Where'd it go? Why aren't we recovered? He increased the size of our GDP by 10%. Why aren't we flourishing right now?
Because companies are raising the money they just balance it back out the way it was before.
Okay, because they extort the money again, sort of, and they are as incompetent as they were before. Any other thoughts? Say it again.
Money's not worth as much.
It's not, well, money's not worth as much. If you put $1 trillion in the economy, yes, we'll have inflation. But we should have recovery. Why aren't we recovering? Why is it that, and let me put it this way, is that a house today is not worth a hell of a lot more than it was 5 years ago, is it? Where's that 5% per year? I haven't had a raise in 5 years.
Does that have anything to do with the way that our money is going out to international debts that we're paying?
Partly, there's definitely a debt problem, but I'll tell you why. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rick.
I was going to say, in a company kind of like Aerojet Rancho Cordova used to be all Aerojet employees.
Right.
When Aerojet got a raise across the board, price of cigarettes went up 5 cents, and
Yeah.
Coke went up 2 cents.
That's called a monopsony. Yeah.
Just pushed it
So what about me and my ratings? What about the value of my house? What about, let me ask you guys this, how many of you guys think we're out of this economic downturn? See what I'm saying? Where is this recovery? Where is it? Well, the money is there, but the problem is us. And what I mean by that is that they, say it's a tax break or AIG's giving a rebate, whatever. So the money's gotten into the economy, but the problem is that we don't believe we're recovered yet, so we're not spending it. And so we've got, not literally, but maybe literally, instead of, you get $1,000 and now instead of going to Red Robin and buying everybody drinks, what do? You buy a bar of gold with it, right? We're not spending the money, it's just hiding in our mattresses because we're not convinced that the recession is over. And so they can't jumpstart that money back out of the economy to spawn the recovery. We'll talk a little bit more about it. It's more of a macro issue, but that's why there hasn't been huge amounts of inflation with a 10% growth in the money supply. We should see everything 10% more right now, and we don't. Okay, and then there's a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. The last thing is that if we put money into the economy, so we're bailing out the economy, we get inflation. Everybody okay with that? More money means that each dollar is worth less. Now, if you get a $200 tax break, what do you do with it?
Spend it.
On what?
Electronics.
That was like the most vanilla answer ever. Stuff. On electronics. Okay, if I got $200, what am I going to do? Red Robin. We're going to go partied up. I'll buy everybody dinner. We're going to go to Sears and buy electronics. Okay, Best Buy. That was like, we're going to the Piggly Wiggly, buy some groceries. Yeah, orange juice. How you know? Yeah, I'm losing my train of thought again. You guys are causing me to look at. So if we go to the Red Robin and we buy drinks, what does that do to the Red Robin employee base?
It pays them.
Yeah. So now, hey, Anthony's here with all of his dumb friends again, and we're there. Well, if I took you guys, all his smart friends, and he's buying drinks, and we need extra help because we need to serve all these people their drinks, right? So what happens to unemployment if we increase the money supply?
It drops.
Unemployment goes down because we spend our money and it causes people to become employed, right? Does that make sense? So there's an inverse relationship. Now, and again, not this class, but just as a note, if we contract the money supply because there's too much inflation, money supply shrinks, I can't go to the Red Robin, and what do they do with the Red Robin employees? They say, well, we're kind of slow, we don't need you tonight, so the unemployment rate goes up. Contract the money supply, unemployment up. So there's this inverse relationship. And again, that's not the thrust of this class, but just a note. Goodbye. See you on Thursday.